and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. If God's with the king, no matter you're just the same. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes? Shit.
Good night, everyone, and welcome back to your favorite sports show. So sorry for the late start. We had some technical difficulties, but you know what time it is. Finally, college hoops fans, we are here. But before we get into that, we have some special guests. First, let's go. Everyone by now should know who Jeff Rubin is, but if you don't, he is a co-founder of the fastest rising sports app in the world right now, Sports Me. And also with him, a first time and another special guest as well, Alex Robson from the Robson Sportscast. Good night, gentlemen.
Hey,
how's it going?
Is going great, guys. We're a bit late. Sorry for the late intros. I'd like to go on further, but we're a bit behind time, so let's get into it. If you're here on show, you know why we're here. Baylor, Gonzaga. Finally, we are here. Arguably, easily the two best teams in the country, 1 and 2, whatever way you want to splice it. So, guys, and I'm going to start with you, Alex. Is this the best matchup that college basketball could have asked for the national game?
In my opinion, absolutely, man. I think this is truly the heavyweight fight, man. This is Goliath versus Goliath. I know usually we have sometimes in the NCAA tournament, as wild as it can get, it is March Madness for a reason. We could have the David versus the Goliath, but it is the two heavyweights from this tournament finally meeting up. The Baylor Bears, the Gonzaga Bulldogs, who I didn't even know they were the Bulldogs until like yesterday, because I always used to call them just the Zags. Like, I did not know they actually had another mascot. I'll just put that out there. But yeah, this is the great matchup that I was really hoping for. I am so happy this is the game, and it just has a big fight feel, like Ali versus Foreman, Zags and Bears. It's going to be a great heavyweight fight, and whoever lands the biggest punch, I think will win this basketball game.
Jeff, I know you love underdogs. We spoke about that off camera. But is this the best matchup, even without a Cinderella story? Is it the best matchup?
There is no underdog here. And we were all, COVID robbed us all of many things over the last 14 months, but they robbed us of a Baylor-Gonzaga game in December. I believe it was December 18th. We would have learned a lot in that game. And I think this is going to be the best matchup possible for Gonzaga because just of the matchups that we have a guard-oriented matchup, but they're a little different. They're strong guards. They are lightning quick, and they are superstar defenders, and they ball hack you, and they chomp on you when you're coming in the lane, and they hit threes at a huge clip, and they're tenacious. And Gonzaga just struggled with that exact thing 2 days ago. And Baylor is far more skilled than UCLA could ever be. And so I just think this is the best matchup. Baylor's the best opponent ever for this Gonzaga team. And again, this is going to be one of the most hyped up games ever because Gonzaga is undefeated. And if they win tonight, they pull off one of the most miraculous things ever because going undefeated in a college basketball season, even if there's a little bit of a, COVID asterisk, just like the bubble last year, hashtag Laker fans. You really,
shots fired.
It's gonna be a great game. I'm so excited, and I have to DVR the game because I have a little bit of shit to do tonight, but that's okay. And okay, yeah, that's it.
You know me, as I told y'all, I'm not for Cinderella stories. I am not for underdogs. I don't care for George Mason. I'm not here for Loyola. So this is the perfect matchup for me. You started the preseason ranked 1 and 2. You spent 17 of 19 weeks, I want to say, ranked 1 and 2. I think Baylor only fell as far as 3 this season.
Yeah.
The two highest scoring offenses, the best offense in terms of Gonzaga in scoring in the paint versus the best offense in terms of shooting from the beyond the arc. And then you have on either side potential lottery picks for the NBA. You can't ask for anything better than Baylor and Gonzaga. You mentioned that December showdown that was supposed to happen, and that makes it even better because we were supposed to get that match like months later because back then, we felt this may be the preview of a title game. Well, guess what? We did get the title game that we all asked for. And even long before that, because some may argue when COVID rocked college basketball, the March Madness last year, these were arguably then the two best teams in the nation all the way back then too. So we finally got something to cheer for. Yeah. So George Mason, sorry Loyola, sorry for all those underdog stories, those Cinderellas, but no, I'm the wicked stepmother and I just want to see elite basketball playing tonight. Speaking, gentlemen, of elite basketball and the lot picks I may have met. One side we have Jalen Suggs. The other side we have Davion Mitchell. Guys, is this the matchup that decides this contest? I'll start with you, Jeff.
Wait, you broke up a little bit. Say that again.
Davion Mitchell, Jalen Suggs. A matchup of two potential lottery picks.
Is that what you're asking me?
Is that the matchup that decides this title?
So, I think yes, but I'm gonna say no. because think about it like this. Suggs is what people don't realize about this Gonzaga team is they've never had a player like Suggs. He is the highest ranked recruit they've ever had by far. And he also happens to be like the number one high school pick. He could potentially be the number one NBA draft pick. And
don't jump the gun. We're gonna get there.
No. I know. I have a reason I'm saying that, but because I expect him to play well. I expect Mitchell to play well. I'm actually looking at Corey Kispert and how this Baylor team and Mitchell and Butler and Teague and the other dude who's actually really good and super underrated, I forget his name right now, who's maybe their best defender, how they guard him. And if they can contain his three-point shooting, which has been a huge key to Gonzaga's success, I think that is the matchup that I'm most interested in seeing. And then obviously who guards Timmy, who can slow down Timmy, and then who's going to stop that three-headed beast of Baylor, because Corey Kispert is not going to guard any of those three at all. That's just a terrible matchup for him. That's like Danny Ainge trying to guard Kyrie Irving. It's just a bad idea. So
what about you, Alex?
Honestly, I think Danny Ainge could take Kyrie. But anyway, that's totally off topic.
I meant Danny Ainge. Danny Ainge.
Oh, now Danny? Okay, that may be a little different story. But I think definitely Mitchell versus Suggs is one of the key matchups. But I think there are two other matchups that are very important. One that I'm thinking of is Baylor versus Timmy. As you mentioned, Jeff, Timmy, I think, is the centerpiece of this Gonzaga basketball team. He's a great defender. This guy can score all around the court. He is a great talent player. And I noticed when Gonzaga was at their best playing UCLA last game, it was when they gave Timmy the ball in the paint and he either drove in and scored or he kicked it back out for a Suggs to hit an open three. Timmy is the center core of this offense. If they can contain him and make sure they lock him down, then I think Baylor could honestly run away with this basketball game. But that's getting a little ahead of ourselves. The other matchup I believe is big and important is Baylor's athleticism versus Gonzaga's defense. Baylor may be the most athletic team in the country. They have athletes all on that roster, even deep onto the bench. It is an insanely athletic team. They were dunking all over Houston in that dominant victory in the Final Four. How can Gonzaga's defense contain that athleticism and force them to take jumpers, force them to take contested shots? Can they contain that speed and quickness of the Bears? That remains to be seen, and I think that will be the matchup that really determines who's going home with the national championship.
have made me feel redundant. It's almost like you read my notes because I really wanted to talk about how I think the matchup that decides this game is Miller defends Timmy. I think that's what decides this entire game. Like you hit the nail on the head. He is the centerpiece of what they do. If you leave him one-on-one with, and we know Baylor is particularly undersized, they like to throw a lot of guards, a lot of three-guard sets. I'm not sure that Baylor can handle Timmy one-on-one, especially as we know Mark Few is such a good coach. He headhunts mismatches and creates mismatches for Timmy in the paint. And if you do bring help, he is an extremely good passer. I think that's an underrated part of his game, which leads to Corey's shots and shots for all the other guards who sometimes can be hit or miss. They're not really shooting that well. Ooh, yeah, I think how they defend Drew Timmy in the post really is going to decide this game. We mentioned Jalen Suggs earlier in this game, or earlier in the show. Throughout the entire season, we have been hearing the presumptive number one pick will be probably Cade Cunningham. But especially after watching the heroics from Jalen Suggs in that semifinal win over UCLA, that overtime thriller, can a case now be made for Jalen Suggs actually going number one overall? Could Gonzaga actually produce a number one overall pick in the upcoming NBA draft?
It's definitely interesting, man. It really depends for me who's going to have that first overall pick, because now it's not so easy to determine because of the lottery, how it's changed and how much more fair it is. You can't just tank for a guy and then end up with that first overall pick. That's not how it works anymore. So it really depends on who has that first overall pick and what they're looking for. I think if they're whoever has that first overall pick, if they're looking for an elite level scorer, I think you got to go Cade Cunningham, because I think Cade Cunningham is going to be an unbelievable scoring threat in the NBA, and I think it's going to happen quick. But if you're looking for a bigger guy, a guy that can be a little more physical, has great speed for his position, and can shoot the rock on occasion, I think Jalen Suggs definitely has the potential to be a number one overall pick. But I just think Cade Cunningham, he has made his case all throughout the season, and I think, in my opinion, as great as Suggs' heroics was against UCLA, I just got to say Cade Cunningham for me is still the unanimous number one overall pick.
You think the same way, Jeff?
Yeah, I agree. I think that Suggs has phenomenal talent. I think his shooting is a little suspect from three, and I'm not quite sure what his NBA level shooting is going to be like. And so Cade Cunningham is he's built for the NBA, right? He's athletic, he's long, he's a phenomenal defender, he can score, he can shoot, and he's not the best shooter in the world, but he's certainly a good shooter, and he can be more consistent. I mean, this is what NBA. 5 seconds. NBA. Sorry, I'm checking some stats, and things are going crazy. And can I just check a stat? So I think ultimately Cade is going to be the number one pick, but again, who knows? This is it's a deep draft, but I think in terms of no superstars, but we'll see. Cade's the only superstar that I see in the draft, but things could change.
This is going to make for a very boring topic because I agree with both of you. Cade is likely the only superstar in this draft. I do think that Jalen Suggs will be a very solid role player or a starter in this league. And what really showed me was that one sequence. I mean, everyone talks about it. We've all seen it by now. The block of a dunk attempt on one end, immediately leading to a on-point one-handed bounce pass to Drew Timmy for a dunk. And we don't have to mention that 40-foot game winner to ice things against UCLA. Yep. And this makes it so much easier. My job is so easy tonight because that allows me to segue into the very next point. Speaking of that 40-foot game winner, and I won't give away my age because I've been able to see quite a few, is that the greatest shot in NCAA tournament history for you?
You know,
whoever don't all jump at the same time.
I'm gonna go with that was the best college basketball game I've ever seen. And I missed the Stanford Arizona women's final, which I heard was
should not. You really should not. And I apologize. I'm hoping I forgot. I should have led the cast tonight by also congratulating the Stanford Cardinal for winning an all. Oh, that was an awesome game.
No,
last
I
night
need
Arizona.
to see it. I couldn't watch it because timing didn't work out, and I was with family and the baby. But I heard it was an amazing game. Without seeing that, it was one of the best games again because there was like the assumption this team is going to go undefeated. They're going to blow UCLA out. It had the highest spread in 25 years, which is again a big indication of how tonight is going to go because a 4.5 spread, that's a lot of points for a game that we think is going to be close. What does Vegas know that we don't, right? What are they thinking? What analytics do they have that we're not thinking about? So I just think that shot, the way it was done, the hype around one team and not the other, and the expectation that like UCLA was going to cave, and they just the opposite. They were tough, they were physical, they grinded. Everything Baylor is going to do tonight and potentially win. So I'm going to go with best game ever, best shot. It was definitely up there. I don't know. I mean, the Jenkins shot might be better because that was the actual championship game. So you got to go that as probably over this. But yeah, I mean, it was huge. It's a big shot.
Yeah, I agree. I think the shot is one of the greatest I have ever seen. Then I'm only 19 years old. I haven't been around the ballpark as long as you guys have. I know some of you guys have been around a little longer than I have, but in my lifetime, that is definitely one of the better ones that I have seen. I still got to give it to Chris Jenkins, man, because that was kind of the bracket solidifier for me. My school back then, my high school, we all had a big group bracket over our entire high school, and I won the bracket thanks to that shot. So, Chris Jenkins, you have my heart forever, man. But it was just unbelievable for the championship. You want to talk in my best Bill Rafter impression? You want to talk about them onions? That was double order salt. That was amazing. But yeah, this shot definitely ranks up there. I definitely would put it in that same category with the Chris Jenkins shot for the championship, with Christian Laettner's the infamous the shot against Kentucky. It is up there for sure. And I honestly don't. And you called it the best game ever. I got to give it again to that 2016 national championship game because then the sequence of events that had to. You had Marcus Page nailing the 3 to tie the game, and then right after that, Chris Jenkins coming back down and nailing the dagger to win it all. And it was such an awesome experience. This game is probably one of the best I have watched, no doubt in my mind. Definitely a top 3 for me. But I got to say, it's not the best shot ever. I got to give it to Chris Jenkins winning the title for Nova.
What about Christian Laettner, Tyrus at UCLA? Like, those are some epic shots. So, and that was in the championship. So I'm going to go with a hard no now on that was not the best shot ever, but it was definitely in my top 5.
Absolutely.
So I'm about to age myself and also show my bias. For me, yes, it's a top 5 shot. And if someone were to argue it's the greatest shot of all time, depending on age, because like Alex is only 19. Let me not put only, sorry. Alex is 19, and if he said that that's the greatest shot he's ever seen, like, I'm not going to argue against that.
That's true.
For me, I would have seen Alex, I saw this live. I would have seen Christian Laettner's shot against Kentucky live. And, you know, I'm a huge Duke fan. Never went to school there, but the brotherhood. So, and even with that said, because, you know, Grant Hill had to throw a whole court heave. Christian Laettner had to catch, pump fake, turn over his left shoulder, and hit that shot. We all know by now Michael Jordan's shot to win a title for UNC.
Yeah, we forgot about Michael Jordan. Jesus, how do we forget about Michael Jordan winning a game, winning a championship? That is the number one ever.
Yeah, that's easy. That's easy.
I tried not to mention it as a Duke fan, but I had to.
What about Jimmy V? Jimmy V. That might be the best ever, actually. That might be the best shot ever. That actually is.
There's too many great shots in March Madness history to just.
No, they really are. I changed my mind. It's not. It's the Jimmy B because what that meant to the world and how Jimmy saved so many people in the world due to what happened. And I don't know if you guys have seen Sports Me is doing a little collab right now with the Jimmy Fund and Rivals Media to donate for some great causes. We have some great charity stuff coming and all that good stuff because we love to give back and all that. But that moment, like no one expected. And I know that our boy Justin hates Cinderellas, but biggest upset ever. Yes, best shot, not the coolest looking shot, but it definitely was the biggest shot. So because of what it meant, and again, Jimmy V, so recognizable, and what that has meant to cancer research, and is just amazing. You gotta give it to Jimmy V and that team. I don't even know who's the dude who hit the final shot. I don't even remember who it is.
Me neither, but that's why I
The
brought y'all on
dunk.
this.
No, the tap in. It wasn't even a dunk. It was a tap in, not a dunk.
So that's
Offensive
again,
goaltending. Good thing they didn't call offensive goaltending.
good thing, right? Because that's robbed us of one of the greatest sports moments in the history of all sports. But as I said, it depends on your age, your era. For someone who, as I said, a younger person, teenager or young 20s, calls this the greatest shot in NCAA tournament history, I have no issue with that. If someone my age or a little older goes with Jimmy Valvano or, Christian Laettner, Michael Jordan, again, I have no issue. Like, for me, it is an undoubted top 5 shot in the history of the tournament. I'll go that far.
Justin, since we're talking about Michael Jordan, where do you put his game-winning shot? You could call it a dunk in Space Jam 1. Where does that go amongst your all-time favorite game winners?
All-time for him or all-time period?
All-time period.
In Space Jam, the consequences were a bit high then. The stakes were really high. So I'm going to have to put that as probably his second best game winner of all time. Just because, we know the story by now behind Byron Russell calling him out in retirement. So I'm going to still put that behind the Jazz game winner. But the consequences were very high in Space Jam. We're talking about the fairy world. So I'm going to put that number 2 in Jordan.
Wait, you think Russell was a foul or wasn't a foul?
It's a foul, but you can't call that.
You think it's an offensive foul or not an offensive foul?
It's an offensive foul for sure, but
it's not an offensive foul. The dude is going the other way. He's going the other way. His direction, a faint little touch from his lordship himself, Michael Jordan.
Jeff, it is not faint. There is no way you're sending a 220-pound man flying going to his left.
There's 3 seconds left in the NBA championship. This dude's energy is flying. Byron Russell is a great defender.
I'm going to take these off. You guys have fun. I'll be back.
No, we're good.
Like, don't get me wrong, Jeff. There is not a referee in the history of any sport that's going to call that foul. Like, he'd have to be crazy. No. But yeah, it is offensive. It's a push off. Jeff, I know you have an engagement, so I'm gonna let you.
I got to run. Thank you so much for having me. I want to come back. We should do it. Can you even do an IG live? We should do this again, Alex and Justin, the 3 of us.
We can do this tomorrow. We can actually come back on IG live tomorrow, and let's wrap up Baylor's. Oh no, I said that too quickly. I gave away my spoiler at the end.
Well, I am Justin. I am about to leave, so do you want me to give my prediction real quick?
Go right ahead as you are about to leave.
Okay. Boys and girls and people around the world who are watching this, Baylor is going to cover 8.5 points. It is going to be over 149. I literally don't care anything else. No, but I do think Baylor is going to keep it close. I think they're too good. They're too fast. Timmy, like Alex said, is obviously going to be the biggest differentiator because he is so good. He's so big. He's so dominant. And there is that the guy T'Challa, or whatever his name is actually a pretty big, energetic guy, so he can guard Timmy. But Timmy's so smooth that he could foul out. So who knows? But I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a close game. I think Gonzalez pulls it off in the end by like 1 or 2. If there is a game-winning shot, then we're going to revisit this tomorrow night. And the best game-winning shot ever second best, because no one will ever talk Jimmy B. It might be tonight. I hope I win money, and I hope you guys have a great night and have a great time watching the game. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks again for Jeff for hopping in. And for those of you, again, Jeff is indeed the co-founder of Sports Me app. So go look it up. Go wherever, whatever device you have, whatever software. Yep. Please just chop on Sports Me. I'm there. Alex is there. We're all there, sports podcasters. So as Jeff hops out now, I'm going to turn to you here, Alex. Natural segue into this because we just spoke about that. thrilling game and arguably one of the greatest in college basketball history. Does the hype around that semifinal win then doom this title game in terms of will the title game, tonight's title game, be able to live up to the hype of what we saw in terms of Gonzaga versus UCLA?
Absolutely. I think it hypes it up even more, in my opinion. I mean, because this is really the first time, I think, this entire season that we have seen a sign of weakness out of Gonzaga. I mean, they're 31-0 for a reason, and that the 11 seed UCLA that had to beat Michigan State to even get into the tournament, they went from first four to the final four. That they were this, like, one shot away from playing Gonzaga in double overtime and possibly taking down the number one seed in the entire tournament. I definitely think this hypes it up even more to be like, man, if UCLA could have done this, kept it that close, is it a sign of weakness? Can Baylor capitalize? Do they smell the blood in the water? Can Baylor capitalize off this? Or is this going to just fire up Gonzaga and they're just going to come out running and look like the old Gonzaga team that ran roughshod through everybody? And also, you got to think of the magnitude of that record I just mentioned, 31-0. I believe it was the Indiana State, led by Larry Bird, that last went undefeated to win a national championship. I think so, anyway. Or maybe the last undefeated team to play in it.
Last undefeated team to play in it. I think the last undefeated was
Indiana, maybe?
Yes, Indiana 1976. Bob Knight's
Okay.
Indiana team in 1976.
Bob Knight's, yeah. Okay, yeah, that was the. I knew it was either Indiana State or Indiana. I couldn't remember. Again, I'm 19. Give me a break, everybody. I know.
No,
everybody,
no worries.
Everybody,
that's before my time too, Alex. I'm not that old.
Everybody,
old, but
all the old heads in your life are like, man, this kid's an idiot.
No, that you won't get that on this show because that is before my time as well.
But anyway, yeah, I think it hypes up even more because if Zaga wins this basketball game, they do something that has not been done in so long. 32-0, perfect season. But if Baylor wins, they play the ultimate spoiler, the 1-31-1. That'd be pretty special. So I think this hypes it up even more. Where the result lives up to this hype, that remains to be seen.
For me, yeah, I think it only helped to hype the game because the hype won't matter, or let's say the lack of competitiveness possible in this game is not going to matter because hype all depends on what happens beforehand. And you're correct in saying, or at least in my estimation, that the hype coming from that UCLA Gonzaga game only helped to build this game even more because unfortunately we saw an absolute dud in that other game with Houston and Baylor. Like, that was an absolute beating, and it was not even close from the tip. Like, Baylor just jumped all over them. So I agree that hype only helped to build the stature of this game. My only worry is, I mean, I have not played sports at that level, but you had to get up to such an emotional height to win an overtime game, especially on a game-winning shot, a 40-foot heave and a banker at that. My worry is, how do you get your emotions up again for a potential, it's not even a potential, sorry, it is a final game against the next best team in the country. Like, how do you get yourself revved up right all over again in the span of 48 hours? You're human, and it's very hard. And I say this to say, like, I have some friends who are DJs, and I ask them, why are you in fests? Like, they'll be in parties, and during parties, they will tell me, or you would see a noted difference for DJs. They would have what we would term hype music. They would have energy music. And then at one point in the set, they would bring it all down. And I figured that was just a situation for people at the bar to make money, for, patrons to go buy their drinks or whatever not. And they told me, no, Justin, the reason they do that is because the human body is not wired to be at a high for so long. So you have to bring the energy levels back down and to go back up again. And that's my fear for Gonzaga to start this game. And we've mentioned how Baylor gets after your guards. Will Gonzaga be able to match the intensity, be able to keep that emotional high to start this game? Because I do believe they're going to need it against Jared Butler. Against Jared Butler. They're going to need it against Davion Mitchell, against Teague. they're going to need it against that backcourt that's going to get after you and shoot so well. And as we are on what Baylor does so well, Alex, I'm going to ask you this to transition into our next topic. And it feels so wrong to call it an upset, but we'll say it anyway because you mentioned Gonzaga is indeed 32-0 and the heavy favorites. What does Baylor need to do to guarantee a victory and pull off the upset tonight?
They have to attack right away. They have to win the tip and be aggressive from minute one. They have to drive at these guys, and I think they got to get the stars in foul trouble. You got to get you got to get to the free throw line. You got to get Suggs in foul trouble. Got to try and get Timmy in foul trouble. Draw contact and try and get their stars on the bench early, and then really, really just attack these guys. And speaking of Timmy, in my opinion, you got to find a way to lock him down, because if he gets that ball, like I mentioned earlier, he is the core piece that makes Gonzaga's offense go. He is the core piece in how their defense operates. If you can find a way to slow him down, minimize his effect on this basketball game, that is really the only way I see Baylor winning this game. Because in my opinion, if you're playing straight up with Gonzaga, I don't think you're going to outshoot them. I don't think you're going to outscore them. And I don't think you're going to out-hustle them. Because Gonzaga will do all three of those things just as well. There's a reason they're 31-0 is because they do everything well. Baylor, you have to be aggressive, get their stars in foul trouble, get to the free throw line, and really play aggressive basketball from first tip to final whistle. If Baylor does that for every single minute of this basketball game, they will be cutting down the nets and they will be national champions.
I have to agree with you. It's almost like you had access to my notes that I didn't give out. I think it all revolves around Timmy. For me, you have to make him play defense. Like you're gonna have to put him in ball screens and attack him, like literally attack him and make him play defense. We've seen that he can get into foul trouble, and you're correct. Like he is the centerpiece of what they do offensively, and the team carries a different look to it when he's on the bench. So I think they have to make him play defense, and as well, like when he's on the offensive end, I don't think you can allow him to go one-on-one. You allow him to go one-on-one with Baylor's forwards, I think that's
over.
curtains. Like that's blouses. Like this game is over. You cannot allow him to go one-on-one. You have to be smart with your traps, your double teams. You're gonna have to swarm that ball. And I'd go as far as to say, dear Gonzaga's non-stars, and I mean by non-stars, players not named Suggs and Kispert, like you're gonna have to make those other players beat you. And I think that way, like if Baylor can do that, as you said, if Baylor can get after them early and jump on them, take advantage of what emotional letdown they may have against UCLA, like I think Baylor can indeed pull off the upset. But on the flip side, Alex, what must Gonzaga do to avoid this upset, keep their perfect hopes alive?
They have to slow this game down, because as we have been talking about, Baylor is such a fast and aggressive basketball team. They will get after you, and they will try and nail shots on you. Gonzaga, when they are on offense, they have to slow this basketball game down. They have to make Baylor play at their speed. They have to slow it down and run the offense well. Make sure Baylor does not attack. And on defense, they have to play smart. Like I mentioned, because I think Baylor is going to try and get their stars into foul trouble. Gonzaga has to play tough and disciplined basketball for the entire game. Because if they start getting into foul trouble, there's going to be a lot of issues. And I think Baylor is a much deeper team than Gonzaga. We have to see how that works out. And the thing that killed Gonzaga against UCLA was the turnovers. They turned the ball over way more than they usually do. They have to make sure that Baylor does not get second chances off of turnovers, because if they do that, Baylor is going to outrun them with their athleticism.
I completely agree. We've talked about it all show long. This team is athletic, aggressive, gets out and gets at you. You have to slow them down. You can't play at their pace. You can't play with those guards. And I think the key to this game, other than obviously Timmy, that you have to slow the game down, play the game through Drew Timmy, and avoid getting into a trap meet. And number one way you do that is just avoiding turnovers. You cannot get into a turnover. Like you can't be loose with the ball. And so as big as I want to say Timmy is to the game plan, Gonzaga's guards have to be able to control this game and just, I don't know how they do it, but you're going to have to soak up the pressure from these athletic Baylor guards, primarily
100%.
Butler and yeah, you have to be able to soak up that pressure. You're going to have to run the ball through Timmy in the low blocks and just make sure you're not turning over that basketball, because you turn it over and those guys are gone the next way. It's layups, it's open court threes, because you know that this team, like unlike any other in the country, will shoot threes on you in transition, and they shoot it at a very, very high clip. I think we've already mentioned that they're the best three-point shooting team in the entire country. You do not want to be turning over the ball. You don't want to be giving this team extra possessions. That being said, we mentioned this now, Alex. This is a team that is going after a piece of history, the last team to have won a national title game, going unbeaten in its 1976 Indiana team. Gonzaga was preseason number one, ranked number one the entire way through. They're unbeaten. So I have to believe then, Alex, all of the pressure has to be on Gonzaga, right?
In my opinion, unanimous number one team in the country from minute one. From day one, you were the guys that every professional in the game was looking at and saying, this is the team that's going to be cutting down the nets come March, come late April. Gonzaga and has lived up to that. They have run the table. They have remained undefeated through it out. They have dominated every single person in their way, except for UCLA. This is the first time they have shown weakness now. And now there's that coming into this game too. They have finally shown some cracks in the armor, and now they're going up against the one team that I think can hang with them for a whole game, and that is the Baylor Bears. The exact opposite of what Gonzaga is, Baylor can exploit the weaknesses. I think this is a mass amount of pressure on the Zags. They have to do this. They have to show the country right. Everything is on the line for Gonzaga. You can run the table and go 31-0 all you want, but the last thing you want is to get all the way to the end and then finish 31-1 and watching Baylor cut down the nets. This is 100% all on the Zags. They have to win this game tonight.
And I'm with you. As much as this title would also represent Baylor's first in program history, also the same thing is for Gonzaga. So I have to believe, like you said, all of the pressure is on Gonzaga. You were the presumptive favorites. You started as preseason number one. You went the entire season as number one. You went through, I want to say, 27 straight games winning by double digits. You have Jalen Suggs, people having to go as high as number two, maybe even number three, probably number three. You are expected to win, and you've been expected to win from the jump. When you went through those 27 straight double-digit victories, all the pressure has to be on you. As much as Baylor, this would be their first title in school history. The same applies for you, and you just can't go 31-1 when history here is on the line. So that being
100%.
said, no one's come to hear all of this from us, Alex. Everyone's waiting for what they really don't care. So let's get to it. Jeff already gave us his prediction and why. So Alex, who wins tonight and ultimately why?
I got to go with the Baylor Bears. As much as I love Gonzaga, as much as I would love for them to go 32-0, I just think with the weakness they showed against UCLA, Baylor does what UCLA does, but just better. Baylor is just going to really get after these guys. They're going to outrun them. They are going to out-hustle them. They are going to really get after it. They are going to make sure that Gonzaga runs. I believe from the jump, they're going to press them from the beginning when they're inbounding the ball. They're going to run an up-tempo offense. It's going to be like hold the ball for 5 seconds, find an open man, shoot the jumper for Baylor's offense. They're going to make Gonzaga run. They're going to try and make Gonzaga do the exact same thing. The more I think Gonzaga plays into Baylor's hands, the more I think Baylor's going to win this basketball game. So I think tonight the Baylor Bears become the one in 31-1, and for the first time in program history, they will be hoisting the national championship.
So when I came up with the notes and we spoke off air, I told you I had not made up my mind as yet.
Not yet.
And
Hope you
My
have now, man, because now all the pressure's on you, man.
Yep, because I get to close now, and the pressure, just like Gonzaga, is all on me now. So my heart wants to go with Gonzaga, the perfect storyline. First team to run the table unbeaten since 1976, Bob Knight's Indiana team. And the storylines. I love their players. I love Jalen Suggs. I love Drew Timmy. I love their head coach Mark Few. I love what he does, and I thought it was so. I don't know, not instinctive, but it was such a smart thing not to call that timeout when every single coach probably would have. I want to get into coaching at some time in my life, in my career. I would have definitely called a timeout there. And his infinite wisdom, he just said he hoped that Corey took out the ball quickly, which he did. He took it out quickly. Jalen called for the ball, and the rest is history, as we say. I really want to root for this Gonzaga Bulldogs team, who was, oddly enough, just not too long ago the Cinderella story of college basketball, but now they're a powerhouse.
Yeah.
That being said, my basketball brain tells me Baylor wins because we have transitioned. This is no longer the 80s or the 90s of basketball where big men dominate basketball games. Yes, we've seen Drew Timmy do that, with less athleticism, playing below the rim and really dominating these teams. But when I look at Jared Butler, I look at Davion Mitchell, I want to say Mason Teague, that's his name. Their guards do, as we said over and over again all night, their guards get after you defensively, and they push the tempo, and they come at you in waves. And it's just not the three of them. They have even more talented guards coming off the bench. They get after you in waves. They get in transition. They push the basketball. And simple math, 3 is greater than 2. And no one shoots the 3 better in the country than these Baylor Bears. Alex, my basketball brain tells me it is Baylor, and especially coming off of that emotional high, I am not sure Gonzaga can get back to that just 48 hours later. It's a boring show because all 3 of us have picked Baylor, but yeah, I'm going to go with the Baylor Bears in this one.
So you know what that means, right? We all 3
Yes.
picked Baylor. Gonzaga's going to win now.
In a row.
It's going to be
wins
like
in a row.
85-72 now. Like, it's just going to be an absolute domination. Bulldogs will win the title. Make us look like idiots, man. I'm the only one in my family bracket that didn't pick Gonzaga. I picked Alabama to win. We saw how that ended. But yeah, so I think Gonzaga's just going to continue to prove me wrong. And good for them, man. Honestly, Duke, your team's Duke. They didn't make tournament. My team's Florida. They barely got in there. They got upset by Oral Roberts, which was just annoying. I fire Mike White already, please, for the love of God. But anyway, off topic. But Gonzaga, like you mentioned, Gonzaga's kind of went from that David state. We always talk about David versus Goliath. Gonzaga is one of those rare teams that was a David from the beginning, what has risen into a Goliath. They are now a blue blood college basketball team, but that blue blood is missing one thing, and that is a banner in that stadium that says national champions. So I think Gonzaga, they can do it, but I just think there needs to be a lot of pieces that they need to do right, and do it not just right, do it perfectly for them to take down Baylor. I just don't see it. I just think Baylor, just like you said, 3's better than 2, and no one shoots better in the country than Baylor from the 3-point line. And they have, like you mentioned, they have 3 guards that are hyper aggressive. So in the end, I'm just hoping for a great basketball game, and one that lives up to the hype that it has built up to from the UCLA game and from the Houston game where Baylor dominated. So I'm just hoping for a great basketball game.
I'm with you, Alex. So before we hop off this cast, please tell everyone, all the viewers here watching, how to find you and what do you put out there.
All right. For those who haven't been paying attention the whole time or just now joining at the very end, A, you missed a great show hosted by this Justin. And 2, I am Alex Robson, host of the Robson Sportscast, 19-year-old kid from Blacksburg, Virginia, just trying to make it in the sports world. My dream is to be an ESPN broadcaster, joining the ranks of all the other greats on that great programming. I have took a month and a half off of school, but I am back now bringing you the best and the good old-fashioned sports chat. I promise it. None of that political bullcrap. You can go watch the news for that stuff. You come to my show to listen to sports talk, and that is what I provide. I talk about everything: football, basketball, baseball, a little bit of boxing and UFC stuff. I talk about it all. You can find me on all major platforms, Spotify, Google Podcasts. You can find me on Anchor. Create your own podcast while you're doing that, by the way. You can find me on all major platforms. Everywhere you can listen to a podcast, you can find me. You can also find the Robson Sportscast on Instagram at the Robson Sportscast. And you can also find the Robson Sportscast on SportsMe, the fastest growing sports debate app in the world today at the Robson Sportscast. You can debate with yours truly. You'll probably win because I'm always usually wrong anyway. But that's where you can find me. Justin, absolute pleasure to be on. I look forward to getting live with you, hopefully, maybe tomorrow. We can talk a little bit afterwards, talk about what we just watched earlier tonight, and I look forward to working with you more in the future, my man.
We'll definitely do. You heard the man. We will be back here. I mean, you all know every Monday night the show is live on YouTube, but we will be back, and by we, I mean Alex and Jeff, because they did promise that we will go on IG Live to debate what happened in the game. We'll break it all down for you because that's what we do for a living.
That's what we do. That's what we do.
So we will be back on IG Live. You know how to find me. This just in on Instagram. We will be back on there to debate what happened. And on Thursdays, as usual, it is, oh my gosh, names are defeating me right now. Adam, it's going to kill me. Adam Lewis from the What Off Season Pod. Yeah, we do it every Thursday on IG Live and then back here again on Mondays. So for Alex Robson, this is Justin Marvel of This Just In signing out. And I hope y'all enjoy what should be a great national championship game. Good night.
Peace.
I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. The God's with the kingdom out of here, just the same. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes? Shit.